I'm alright. Bear with me, folks. Just adjusting the camera a bit better. We just popped on a wee moment early just to check everything's working okay as usual. We have a green for the sound machines, looking good. If anybody's out there, say hello. I'm Dr. Sloan. Welcome to my science fiction station, also known as the Doghouse. And tonight we're going to be doing Chapter 10 in our God Emperor of Dune book club. So as usual, I'm just going to get organised. And there's 10 o'clock, so I will say hello to everybody. Thanks very much for joining me. Just repeating myself as always. Good to have you here, folks. We're having an interesting chapter tonight, which is going to lead into a really interesting chapter. But yes, tonight we're heading Chapter 10 of God Emperor of Dune by Frank Herbert. And there's Soup Pot saying, "Hi Doc, how you doing, Soup Pot? Keeping well." And Baked Alaska Joe says, "I have to run and grab lunch, but I'll be right back. Howdy in the meantime." No worries, I've been running about like a headless chicken today. I've been cooking a haggis for the wife and son, which took a bit of juggling and stuff while trying to get the work done. As Babs said, "Evening, Doug." How you doing, Babs? Thank you very much for joining me as always, folks. It's been an interesting day. I've been checking out some groovy things online. There's Gillian Thompson, X3R, saying, "Hello, Doc. Hi, all. Forgive my shoddy attendance, second semester business." No worries at all, Julian. I'm always glad anybody makes it here, to be honest with you. And we've been having a bit of a time of it actually here lately with, dealing with life's troubles. We've had a bit of a bother with I've basically been nearly assaulted twice in the last couple of months by my neighbour. So things have been going a bit silly there. We've had to get the police out, and we're now getting a lawyer involved. It's just one of those things, Oh, goodness gracious, but we'll try and not let it bug us too much. Babs said, "Howdy, Julian." Howdy, Babs. Yeah, it's been an interesting week, interesting day. Just to give you a wee bit of just what I'm up to myself, actually, before we get cracking with the book club. Just having a wee look at things there today. A fantastic story has hit the web, which today, basically, which it looks like, it's not certain, but it really looks like they might have found the body of Charles de Batz de Castlemore d'Artagnan. Yes, indeed, who was killed in the Battle of Maastricht. And he is the real historical person that D'Artagnan from the Three Musketeers, the Four Musketeers 20 years later, etc., Alexander Dumas' great literary classics, that's who he's based on. So that's really interesting. We tend to go on holiday most years. Actually, we just realized we haven't been on holiday in a couple of years, but we tend to usually go on holiday to the Netherlands. So it's a story online. Check it out if it's your cup of tea, as they say. Very interesting. I love the Three Musketeers. Especially there's a whole bunch of really old movies that I grew up watching, but one of my all-time favorite set of movies is the oh goodness, now who does it? The bear with me, I quickly check this. It's the Michael York ones. It's Alexander. Oh, I didn't even have to get there. Actually, the brain kicked in. There you go. It's the Alexander Salzkin movies. The Three Musketeers, the Four Musketeers, and the Prince and the Pauper. A lot of, and of course, the Count of Monte Cristo. A lot of which use the same actors. So yeah, that's just something fantastically cool. I think, and I really hope the real D'Artagnan was killed by a musket ball to the throat, and apparently in the church there's a musket ball there. So it really, really looks like it's him. And the story itself is actually really good. There's been a local archaeologist who's been searching for his body for decades, and he's the guy that they brought in, Fudge and Nuts says Soup. So there's Cynthia saying hi, Doc, and hi all. Soup Pot saying hi, Bob saying howdy, Cynthia. And there's Carlos Cosella saying, "Hey Doc, evening guys, hope everyone's doing well. We're all groovy." Carlos, thank you very much. I hope you're well too. I hope everybody's well. Hi, Babs, and Julian says, "Soup Pot, howdy, Soup Pot." And Carlos from Soup Pot, howdy, Carlos. We're all saying hello tonight, aren't we? Julian Thompson says, "I really enjoyed the Three Musketeers series on BBC." Oh, don't mention them. We don't like the BBC in this house. The BBC, everyone in Britain hates the BBC now. The Muskehounds, Superpot, I love that. D'Artagnan and the Three Muskehounds. On the more recent, it's a great series. If anybody doesn't know, oh goodness, I don't know who made it, but it's an old cartoon series of the Three Musketeers, and it's incredibly accurate. I love the Muskehounds, but yeah, it's just something just out of nowhere, And apparently, the body was found just because some of the tiles in the church floor were cracked, and they brought some people in to replace the tiles. Whenever they're digging them up, they find a wall, and then they find the body. It's on. Have a look. It's on YouTube. Look, you'll see little news segments coming out of Maastricht. Excellent stuff. But for Julian, if you haven't seen the Alexander Salzkind Three Musketeers and the Four Musketeers, and they actually did 20 years later with Michael York as D'Artagnan. Let's see, Oliver Reed. Who else is in it? Who are the Four Musketeers? It's Oliver Reed, Frank Finlay, and oh goodness, Richard Chamberlain, who's also the Man in the Iron Mask. Those are brilliant, all-star cast. Very funny indeed. So for anyone who's into their Three Musketeers, before my mum passed away, actually, she was reading all sorts of things. I'll just grab it actually. Here we go. Oh goodness, that's not good. But actually, the last book my mum was reading before she passed was actually the Count of Monte Cristo. But I don't know if any of you haven't read Alexander Dumas, look at that. You're going to get your money's worth. Goodness gracious, the Count of Monte Cristo is 1,462 pages. Sadly, this Collins Classic rubbish books. Look at this, just falling to bits. Look at that, absolute rubbish. Disgraceful. There's a good wee kind of glossary of terms at the back of this one, but your Three Musketeers, you're talking 800 pages. If anybody's not read them, oh, you'll love them. They're just great literature. I love them. Really. Yeah, I'd like to do a sort of run through a whole pile of Dumas sometime if I ever get the chance. Love the strides, Doc. Yeah. I've just gone 70s, man. I'm a child of the 70s. I've kind of got back into my flares and stuff. Kind of sort of stage clothes, but yeah, just comfy about the house. But thank you very much, but love the sartorial praise. Thank you very much. I was trying to think of what else. Today, very, very quickly, I was listening to something for anybody who's into their music. Antoine de Poitrine, is that what they're called? Angine de Poitrine. I was listening to them today. If anybody's into their music, wow, fantastic. I'll tell you what they reminded me on. They're very kind of avant-garde, aren't they? They're all, I don't know how to describe them. Just check them out. Fantastic. It reminds me of the music from Trigon. But I've been listening to them. Absolutely fantastic, Carlos Cosell says, loved Michael York in the last remake of Beau Geste with Marty Feldman. Oh God, I haven't seen that. Donkeys, Carlos. Oh, sweet, says Super. Yeah, Michael York's one of my favorite actors of all time. I'll tell you how. Let me see, but I honestly don't know if I have it here somewhere. But I virtually never ever would buy a biography of an actor, and I actually bought his years and a long time ago. But when I was a little kid growing up, he was D'Artagnan. He was Logan in Logan's Run. Many of you probably know him as Exposition from the Austin Powers film, but he's a fantastic actor. I'm a huge fan of Michael York. His biography, I don't see it in here anywhere. It's somewhere about, but if I remember correctly, it's called Traveling Player. Well worth checking out if you're into that kind of thing. If you're into movie star biographies, which I'm not, but I was just one of my favorite actors. And Michael York, Ollie Reed, Frank Finlay, and Richard Chamberlain. What a cast, with Christopher Lee as your villain, by the way. and Richard, who else? Christopher Lee and oh goodness, Charlton Heston. You know, they're I don't know, must be the late 70s, early 80s, possibly. Bear with me a wee second. Alexander Salkind, that's it. See, it's rare that you would think of a set of films by the name of the producer. Three Musketeers, 1973, Four Musketeers, 1974, which led to the Screen Actors Guild, it says here, to issue what became known as the Salkind Clause, which is intended to guarantee that an acting contract for one film cannot be extended into two films without the consent of the actor. I'm not too sure about 20 years later. That was many, many years on, wasn't it? Yeah, but he did the Superman movies and so on, didn't he? But yeah, I don't even know who directed them. Let me have a look. I just don't know them as the Alexander Salkind films. Three Musketeers, directed by Richard Lester, who's got to deserve a lot of credit. It's terrible that I don't know his name. Michael York, Oliver Reed, Frank Finlay, Richard Chamberlain, Raquel Welch, Geraldine Chaplin, Jean-Pierre Cassel, Charlton Heston, Faye Dunaway, Christopher Lee, Simon Ward, George Wilson, and Spike Milligan. And who's missing from that cast there? Very importantly, Roy Kinnear, great British comedian, is not seeing. There he is as Planchette. Yeah, he's way a bit down there. It's from Sybil Dannings and Joss Ackland. Fantastic cast, great movies, brilliant action. Best Three Musketeers films ever, I think. And no one's ever come close, you know. Sweet. Opinions on the Man in the Iron Mask film, asks Julian. Classic in my opinion, says Super. Which one are you talking about? Is it the goodness, again, there's been that many. Bear with me. I love the film, Man in the Iron Mask. If it's the oh god, the Leonardo DiCaprio one, then I hated it. Let's have a look. Let me see. Popular culture. Oh, so many of these old films are actually really good. Film and television. Here we go. It's Douglas Fairbanks, Iron Mask, Man in the Iron Mask, 1939, starring Lewis Hayward. The Richard Chamberlain one again. I wonder is that. Bear with me a wee second. I think that might also be it's around the same time, isn't it? Count of Monte Cristo. Oh, I don't see it there. It's an odd one, The Man in the Iron Mask. I think it's very good, but probably I'm not too sure which of the ones that I remember that I really like. But it's quite possibly the 1939 one. I wouldn't have seen it since I was a kid. Richard Chamberlain, 1977. And then it says in the American film starring Leonardo DiCaprio. I wasn't a fan of that one. Let me just have a wee quick look. So 1977 is a great year for film, isn't it? There it is. Yeah, it's not an Alexander Salkind one. That would probably be the best one, I think. But I really do like the old black and white one. Who's that? Richard Chamberlain, Jenny Agutter, Patrick McGowan, Ralph Richardson, Louis Jordan, Ian Holm, Hugh, again, great cast. Yeah, I mean, Richard Chamberlain's in pretty much all of them, I think, in the 70s. You know, certainly how I got to know. But yeah, great stuff. And just looking at Michael York Chamberlain, and he's the Man in the Iron Mask. And it's easy enough because he's in all of them, isn't he? Because he's Aramis as well. So Richard Chamberlain's the Count of Monte Cristo. He's the Man in the Iron Mask, and he's Aramis. There we go. But yeah, great stuff. Carlos, you've got me dying to watch the remake of BoJack with Marty Feldman. I love Marty Feldman. He's great. But there we go. Did I see Cynthia there in the room, by the way? Cynthia, hi, did indeed. Thank you very much for the email in relation to the stuff from Seriology. I can't wait to check it out. I just got it a wee while back, so thank you very much, and I can't wait to have a nosy. Much appreciated. Just my curiosity, if you know. I'm looking for some ancient stuff to read, ancient world stuff that I don't really know much about. And very quickly, just what I am reading at the moment, folks. I've just finished Hyperion, and I'm on the book 2 of the Hyperion Cantos, which is the Fall of Hyperion. Absolutely haven't read it since the 90s, I think. Fantastic, loving it, every minute of it, and it's got me to dig out my Keats, actually. So I've been reading Hyperion and Endymion and Lamia, stuff that's kind of related to the book, that kind of good old Dan Simmons intertextuality, which I love. So once I've finished those, it's basically the plan is to hit the last of the Lensman stories, and then we're going to tear into Frank Herbert stuff. And I've also got a bit of free time coming up over the next couple of weeks, so we're going to try and get a couple of the things done that we promised that we would get done, and I'm going to have a go at the commentary on the Denis Villeneuve films. So I'm also got a couple of audiobooks coming, hopefully, one of which may be related to Dune. So thank you very much, Cynthia, saying you're welcome. Thank you very much, much appreciated. Best regards to your husband, and thank him very much for me. I really do appreciate that, for answering my curiosity. It's great stuff. Oh, big thank you to BoJack Horseman out there, who's hopped onto the God Emperor of Dune. He's a few episodes behind. Big thanks, as always. Occasionally I make little mistakes. Sometimes it's my bad handwriting, but thank you very much for fixing those little textual errors. I've adjusted my notes, as always. I'm only human. I do make mistakes, and it's great that we've got all of you guys out there checking stuff for me. So much appreciated on that one. Carlos is saying, thank you, Cynthia. Carlos is saying Barry Windsor Smith did an interesting take on the Man in the Iron Mask in a comic called Archer and Armstrong. Oh, I'm not familiar with that at all. It's a very interesting story, isn't it? There's a level of there is a level of historicity to Dumas' books, and I'm no expert on them, but it's certainly something I've seen more of the films than I have read the books, if you like. But I really would like to get through them all someday. But as I said, you can see the size of them. They're I'd argue that the Three Musketeers is quite a short book there. Let's have a wee look just at the pop culture. Yeah, what a horrible thing to do to someone. Actually, it's. I always thought the whole idea of it was quite horrific. But yes, indeed. I think Alexander Dumas, along with Jules Verne, I think probably two of my favorite French writers. Love them. From Valiant Comics. Thank you, Carlos. I'll maybe see if I can check that out. Yeah, it's interestingly enough, though, I'm not too sure where it's on, maybe Prime stuff, but I've started to notice a lot of these old films about these old black and white sort of RKO era stuff, which I really used to get a couple of these movies on every on the BBC before it all went to crap. But yes, indeed. And just one other wee point is that we haven't heard anything from China in a few weeks. Just to say, we're thinking of you and your family. Keep safe, and keep your heads down. And I hope everything's okay. And best regards from me and my family. And we'll have something for you very soon as well, actually. So there we go. What a great set of introductions and chat tonight. Thank you very much, everybody. We're 18 minutes in and we haven't even spoken a word about the God Emperor. But here we have chapter 10. Not a particularly long chapter, but there's a few things in it. Unfortunately, we've got one thing that we're going to have to pull Frank Herbert up on. Is words out of the God Emperor's mouth that are just not right, unfortunately. And it's a thing that we've pulled him up on before. And I was kind of hoping that as time went by, he might have educated himself a bit on this. I've also Exvid has kind of pointed out to me about checking out Without Me You're Nothing, which is Frank's book on home computers, which I've just I've been reading it now. I have to say, very, very importantly, it's Frank Herbert's book with Max Barnard, and I'll very much say that having read through it there, a good bit of it, and skipping some of it, but I know which bits that Max Barnard wrote and which bits Frank wrote. And so therefore I was maybe expecting a bit more computer systemic literacy, this kind of thing, but we'll have a look at it when we get to it. As per usual. Oh, the big thing, by the way, I wanted to say to Bojack as well, because it kind of gave me a wee bit of a kick up the backside, was I'd forgotten that I actually started out using this book for the first 2 chapters. I hadn't transferred over the numbers, etc., that correspond to the notes, so I was able, because we were sort of backing up a wee bit there with Bojack's, you said this wrong, you made a mistake here, and I did, they're all my mistakes. I was able to tidy that up. And actually get all those things transferred into the book that I am working from, which is this one with the horrible sticker. Oh, there was one other thing I found out today, which horrified me again, is that there's more Lord of the Rings crap coming. I think there's is it the Quest for Gollum or something? But I think they've just announced today that there's another movie coming. Who announced it? It was Peter Jackson, but that oh god, what's his name? The American chat show host Stephen Colbert is going to be writing it, I believe. Oh dear. And as much as he has, I think he likes to think of himself as the biggest Tolkien fan. I think he's going to find himself joining the club that's of people that's wrecking his work, you know. And there's the big Alaska Joe says, I have excellent timing. And you do indeed, sir. Wee bit of a preamble there, but almost a peregrination till we get to our book. So let's get cracking, folks. Here, do you notice I'm maybe not coughing as much this week? I've seriously hammered my smoking down over the last 2 weeks. I think it's about time. And as much as I'm still having the odd one, I've engaged with the plastic cigarette, you know, which is pretty good, I have to say. It's got a wee bit of a pull on it. So yeah, here's hoping we can kind of cut that down a bit. Getting too old for that kind of stuff. Let's get me paperweights. Right, here's our epigraph, folks. I've just called this chapter Moneo and the Worm. Here we go. You must remember that I have at my internal demand every expertise known to history. This is the fund of energy I draw upon when I address the mentality of war. If you have not heard the moaning cries of the wounded and the dying, you do not know war. I have heard those cries in such numbers that they haunt me. I have cried out myself in the aftermath of battle. I have suffered wounds in every epoch, wounds from fist and club and rock, from shell-studded limb and bronze sword, from the mace and the cannon, from arrows and lasguns and the silent smothering of atomic dust, from biological invasions which blacken the tongue and drown the lungs, from the swift gush of flame and the silent working of slow poisons, and more I will not recount. I have seen and felt them all. To those who dare ask why I behave as I do, I say, with my memories, I can do nothing else. I am not a coward, and once I was human. This is from the Stolen Journals. I really like the writing here. It's a good piece of writing from Frank. A couple of things, I suppose. The mentality of war. We're moving on with this theme that we've had a wee sort of look at. It's starting to come in, isn't it? And it's something that I've always said that it's one of my major criticisms of Denis Villeneuve trying to turn Dune into Star Wars, is that I firmly believe, and I hope you agree with me, maybe you don't, but I believe that the Dune series are anti-war, against war. So we get a, again, this is the other memory of the God Emperor and the totality of it, if you like. That he's been here, done that, and if you again, this is kind of one of these. If you haven't done it, you haven't. You don't know. And I suppose it's a very good point. If you haven't experienced war, you really do know nothing about it. If you've watched gunplay or battles on TV and stuff like that, you might get something like Saving Private Ryan, which is quite visceral. It's really just visual and oral, isn't it? It's you don't get that sense of smell and just the whole visceral violence of it and stuff like that. It's pretty, I haven't really experienced war, but I've experienced the troubles in that sense, which is as good as shootings and bombs and stuff like that. And they scare the shit out of you, quite frankly. It's so it's a fair point, and that he's haunted by this, that he's suffered. And all of this is, again, to give us the God Emperor's point of view. A couple of wee interesting things within it, but silent working of slow poisons. Oh, I need to highlight that bit there, etc. Pardon me for a wee second. I just grab a red pen here. But I thought the more that I will not recount, and I was kind of wondering why not. So, gosh, there we go. Flame and silent working of slow poisons. There we go. However, the only thing I thought within the epigraph, and again, I'd love to hear your opinions on this, folks, is I've seen and felt them all. To those who dare ask why I behave as I do, I say, with my memories, I can do nothing else. I'm not a coward, and once I was human. So I figured that it's not really an answer, is it? Unless we know how he behaves, in which case it is an answer. But I'm not a coward, therefore I'm brave, if you like, if you want to go the opposite way. And once I was human, but I'm not anymore. So it's an interesting little. Again, we're getting this. How would we call it? Almost an apology, in the old sense of the word, an apology, if you like, from the God Emperor. We're getting this is his autobiography, and it's, yeah, I think, again, designed possibly for understanding and sympathy, but we're still, there's still a bit of a gap there, if you like, a bit of a can't quite fathom him just yet, and we're only still getting to know him. Atreides 1405 says, "Poor Moneo," and Sitpot saying, "Congrats and well done." Atreides 1405, that's one of my favorite excerpts from the book. There's an old, Carlos is saying, there's an old saying, if politicians had to fight, there'd be no wars. Yeah, I've actually got to the point now, Carlos, where I think every political leader of a country should have a bomb put in their head. The amount of people that are dead because of a handful of men on this earth at the minute is disgusting. But it's always just a handful of men, isn't it? And I figured if they had bombs in their heads, that would go off anytime they tried to sort of go out and murder, death, kill with their armies. I have to say, something that really got me recently was that one of the first strikes in Iran had a girls' school. Over 100 kids, 100 girls dead. And the reason why it kind of bothered a lot of me was I just finished reading this. Persepolis autobiography graphic novel, which I really enjoyed. It was a graphic novel I really wanted to read for a long time, and in particular just the depictions of the young girls in school and how they have their little subtle rebellions against the state. It just, having just read it kind of hit me a bit. It's, there's a thing with war these days that we don't give a shit about civilians. The whole collateral damage, the language of it. If a couple of terrorists are hiding in a girls' school, then let's blow up the school and be damned with it. There's something just vile about it. Dear, oh dear, Only the dead have seen the end of war, isn't that it? That's interesting. Atreides 1405, one of your favorite excerpts from the book. There's Scorched Earth Policy 6, and I wonder if Duncan's version of other memory, when he goes, his memory sourced happening to him, whereas Leto II is accessing others. Yeah, I think ultimately the Duncan's other memory, when we get there, is it's all Duncan's, isn't it? So, continuing on there from Scorched Earth says, so Duncan might be the superior Kwisatz Haderach and would be better able to internalize and utilize such memories. You also think that it wouldn't be as if it was just his own other memory, that it possibly, the lives that he's led, that it wouldn't be so overwhelming as opposed to the entire gene pool, or at least the ancestors, if you like. I'm trying to think, it's just, but who votes for the men? We do. Yes, indeed, there's a responsibility. I don't vote. Tranneker, I don't vote at all in my country because there's nobody worth voting for. And therefore, whenever you vote, you hand away your democratic power. So I don't. But also, I have no say. For example, so Northern Ireland is part of Great Britain, United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Of course, we're not part of Great Britain at all because that's the big island. But we have no say in who our Prime Minister is or anything to do with Westminster. Pretty much half of our politicians won't sit in Westminster. So there is no representation, really. I have the opportunity to vote for Protestant mental cases or Catholic mental cases. I don't vote for mental cases. It's as simple as that. And goodness, if you ever take a look at our politicians, they're mad, absolutely raving nutters. I wouldn't trust them to look after a corpse, quite frankly. But yes, we do. We do have a responsibility to a degree of who we put in power. But then you get something like the God Emperor. And this is a feudal society where. I wonder how much the Five Farouche system is still working within the God Emperor's time here. So in a feudal system, you're not responsible for your lords and masters, but they will take you to your death. And it's something that if we remember all the way back in Dune, in our prologue, which is an epilogue, it's on the ecology of Dune, the little mini adventure of Pardo Kynes, and it's just the. Bear with me a wee second. That's what these are for, isn't it? Let's dig it out. Oh goodness, my poor hands! I shouldn't have done that. Right, here we go. And I'll be able to find it because there'll be a bunch of skulls on it. Let me see. This is volume 4, isn't it? Yeah. Bear with me a wee second. It's to do with the manipulation of the Fremen. And it's in the appendix 1, I think. Bear with me a wee second. I should be able to find it. Oh, here, hang on. I think we're back. Yeah. From that instant, Kynes had but to point, saying, "Go there." Entire Fremen tribes went. Men died, women died, children died, but they went. There you go. That's way back a few years ago. Rest in peace, the tools of Pardo Kynes. There you are. And it's all little skulls for the men, the women, the kids, and the Fremen tribes. It's that kind of thing. That's the kind of society we're in with the God Emperor. And the interesting thing is, I don't think we will get a sense of the death toll with him like we do with Paul Atreides. Let's see. Scorched Earth, read along. Scorched Earth Policy 6. I'll get my face turned over there just to get ready. We'll catch up with your comments and then we'll pile in. This read along has sparked me to think this might be the case, as Leto II, even after 3,500 years, acted like a petulant 11-year-old who still knows everything. Pardon me, you're going to find out in this chapter that he doesn't. Scorched earth. But yeah, I'm seriously reevaluating the God Emperor. As I said, I've read through this recently, but now it's the devil's in the detail, isn't it? Chonaker says, people confuse politics, the art of solving shared problems, with a quest for emotional catharsis. In the US, we no longer have legislators so much as elected social media enunciators who simply flatter people who want to hear the powerful echo their own opinions back at them. It's I would go with politics as the science of the happiness of mankind, where the happiness of the individual is subservient to the happiness of the collective. That's not my definition. Trying to get Aristotle's, but I tend to go with it. It's okay to crush the little guy. The idea is to bring us all a bit happier, isn't it? The art of the possible is what I've heard it called as well before in Old Harry's game. Something, by the way, folks, for anybody who's not familiar with Old Harry's game, I listen to it every night. Since we've hit there's an awful lot of similarities between Old Harry himself. Now, Old Harry is the devil, by the way, in the show, and the God Emperor. And I would also argue that there's a number of similarities between Moneo, for example, and Scumspawn, the Old Harry's right-hand man. But there's a number of things. Actually, in this chapter, we're going to get something about the God Emperor not sleeping. There's a whole episode about that with Old Harry, which is very funny. It's called Sleep. But there's things about other memory, and essentially the environment of hell in Old Harry's game acts as a form of other memory because everybody's there. And whenever I suppose that Old Harry's game is a kind of a humanist comedy, where you have a back and forth between the devil and a professor, they're often trying to sort of prove that mankind is worth saving, and Old Harry disagrees. And there's a bit of a shift at a certain point where Old Harry, it's a very funny thing. They're on YouTube if anybody wants to check them out, or you can download them off the Pirate Bay. But a very similar character. Just actually, I know as much as the devil and this is a god, he's very similar. He's a lot funnier though than Leto II, you know. Now, so I'm just going to back up a wee bit because Troniker's comments were split there. We had, let me just see. Read along, Cynthia, sorry, I must have missed yours. Cynthia said, Leto must also have ancestral memories of those who inflict those wounds. Yes, indeed. That too is part of the mentality of war. Yeah, I agree. That's a very good point. It's one of these things that I often wonder why anybody wants to go to war, because the horrors of war, both sides of it, to be killed and be killed, have been described since ancient times. And I would often point out things like the Iliad. The Iliad, for anybody who's not read it, but I'm sure most of you are familiar with the story of the Trojan War, is an incredibly violent book. It's outrageously violent, and it's the depictions of death, especially, are very, very graphic, and they even go past the point of death and what to the soul, if you like. That's you, and off to hell, off to Hades you go. Often remember reading some of those depictions. It's been a good few years now since I've read the Iliad and the Odyssey. I've been reading the Betrayal of Myomaki a couple of times recently, because I'm going to record it within a couple of days, hopefully. But yeah, it's a very good point. Big Alaska Joe says, I've wondered how terrible it would be to have access to most of the memories of the entire human species. Every war, raid, and pillaging would be first-hand knowledge for you at all times. It would be agony. Big Glasgow says, scorched. Wow, yeah, powerful thought there. To know just one person's mind, never mind the whole human race or all of your ancestors, I think would be pretty difficult. I think that it's so difficult to understand another human being completely, isn't it? What's the old thing that Shai Nayan said that what does it go like? Something like you can have a best friend, your entire life. You get to know this person, you can eat with them, dine with them, play with them, have fun with them, learn together, all of this thing, but you don't really know this person. This is a bit brutal. I wouldn't recommend this in any way. But the gist of it is this: if you want to get to know that person, string them up by their feet and stick a knife in their gut. And you'll get to meet the real person for about a minute. And what a horrific thought. Ch10, by the way, for anybody who doesn't know, is the author of The Water Margin. I don't have a copy anymore, sadly. I must get another copy. I gave my last copy away. The Water Margin, one of the 4 great Chinese novels, is also known as The Tale of 108 Men and One Bad Man, or All Men Are Brothers, which also kind of links into that band of brothers thing. Some of the 108 are pretty vicious, nasty people. There's a guy called Leto II. He's a child killer, for example. He's the Black Whirlwind. But that's Ch10 on if you want to meet the real person. We don't really know anyone, do we? To have your entire consciousness flooded with all of those memories, all vying for hello, and at the same time, to be stuck in someone else's head as other memory. It is, to me, it's a depiction of hell. It's some kind of it's a form of afterlife, isn't it? And I suppose that if you're, interestingly enough, as we thought about it, we've had the Baron, in Alia's head and so on. If that's the case, everybody gets to die again and again and again. And then can we filter those memories of dying as a person in other memory into some with other memory? It starts to, I think you start to get a very bad positive feedback loop, wouldn't you? It would, yeah, I agree. I think it would drive you nuts. And of course, if we go all the way back to where Frank gets his ideas on this stuff, it's Samuel Butler's Erewhon, and the pre-Erewhonians who are born prescient are extinct within 6 months. The implication is they've all committed suicide. That's the prescience bit of it, But I see the other memories going the other way, and it wouldn't be any different. I think it'll drive you nuts. Carl saying they call Leto Shaitan for a reason. Yes, indeed. Which is again why I'm pointing. He's God and the devil, isn't he? But why I'm pointing out old Harry's game. And if anybody's not listened to it, it's a radio play, radio comedy. Sorry. There's 7 series of it. It is absolutely brilliant. It's hilarious. I think a lot of the cultural, the references to certain people, they're not necessarily specific to Britain, if you know what I mean, to the United Kingdom. You'll hear jokes about Bill Clinton and so on. And I suppose certain people in hell that you might not expect, and then interestingly enough, the people that they're waiting for and what they're going to do to them whenever they arrive. But it's a very, very funny show. It's a very, very clever show. I assert old Harry as a character who has motivations similar to the God Emperor. Julian saying, when Leto talks about his experiences of war, I picture his memories of war in the ancient Near East. Leto's thoughts on gender and war, sexuality and war, changes how I see the Iliad. Oh, I mean, goodness. I'm trying to think. Well, I'll maybe see if I can dig it out. I'm trying to figure out which one. I've got 3 or 4 of each. Though I've lost my T.E. Shaw's copy of the Odyssey. I don't know, it might be the E.V. Rue one. I'm not too sure. One of them I thought was particularly vicious in its descriptions, Yeah. Yeah, and if you start looking into some of the thoughts on gender and more, etc., how the women, how war's viewed, and there's a whole series of plays that carries on from that. I suppose, as I'm sure you know, Julian, Trees 1405 says, I always had the picture of the early Umayyad period, clubs and slings, that and Sargon and Naram Sin's growth and establishment of Akkad. Excellent. I'm trying to learn a wee bit about Assyriology at the minute myself. As I said, Cynthia's husband sent me some interesting stuff. My head, if you don't know me, Atreides 1405 is I'm a classicist, so my head's firmly stuck in the Greek and Roman world, much more in the Greek world than the Roman one. But I take it I have a bit of an interest in Irish mythology as well, and so on. But I haven't looked at it in years. I'm starting to look a wee bit more at it. I was actually, just in terms of historical documents, I'm trying to find a good copy of the Annals of Ulster in a minute. But yeah, clubs and slings and stuff, all sorts of. Ireland's got some pretty good stuff like that. We've got some interesting weapons, and that are a little bit different than your average sling. We've got the old brain ball thing, sling with a human brain. It's got a brain ball. It's called, what it is human brain dipped in lime and then filled with spikes, and you wing it. I think this is how Concobar gets his, isn't it? And I must dig that out. I think I have it somewhere. I'll see if I can read it to you sometime. It's the story of at the time of Christ. This is the King of Ulster, Concobar, at Navan Fort, and he's out posing for the ladies and showing off his strength and his loveliness and so on. And someone wings one of these brain balls at him and it hits him in the head. They call his surgeons to him, and half of the brain ball is inside his head and the other half is out. So what they do is they cut the bit off on the outside and then sew it up with golden thread. And he's never quite himself after that. And then the story goes that one day he's holding court. He's a much diminished sort of man. Word comes from the Middle East that this person called Jesus Christ has been crucified by the Romans, and the messenger tells him about this, and it makes him so angry that he gets up and is ready to summon all the armies of Ulster to take on Rome. And the brain, he's so wound up by it that the brain ball pops out. He was told never to exert or excite himself with it. Is an interesting story. But yes, indeed, for me, the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. I always think of the 10,000 and Babylon, yes, indeed. But it's interesting. I've got some stuff there from Cynthia and her husband that's kind of pointed me into this. I've always been curious about that region of the world, and I love mythology. So I tend to hit the myths first and then start looking into the history and that kind of thing. But yeah, we find so much in that part of the world. We're learning all sorts, Right, let's jump in. Here we go. In the warm season, when the satellite weather controllers were forced to contend with winds across the great seas, evening after. Oh, here, hang on. We're off already. My bloody terrible handwriting. Let me grab a pen. Evening. No, it's not my handwriting. Okay, I'll read that again. Sorry, folks. In the warm season, when the satellite weather controllers were forced to contend with winds across the great seas, evening often saw rainfall at the edge of the Sarir. Moneo, coming in from one of his periodic inspections of the citadel's perimeter, was caught in a sudden shower. Night fell before he reached shelter. A fish-speaker guard helped him out of his damp cloak at the south portal. She was a heavy-set, blocky woman with a square face, a type Leto favoured for his guardians. So I've made a wee note here, as I'd like to do, guards in the breeding programme. And I've also made a note that this is like Nayla. We were discussing how someone of Nayla's physical stature, that how useless this kind of chameleonic kind of mask, pardon me, that she wears, I can't remember the name of it, that how pointless that would be unless there were an awful lot of people who looked like her. And we just got this confirmed. It's a type, if you like. So there must be quite a few of the fish speakers that have this physical, these physical characteristics, which would mean that, yes, a mask would disguise Nayla quite easily. This is the fish speaker guard. Those damned weather controllers should be made to shape up, she said as she handed him his damp cloak. Moneo gave her a curt nod before beginning the climb to his quarters. All of the fish speaker guards knew the God Emperor's aversion to moisture, but none of them made Moneo's distinction. Let me get his thoughts here. It is the worm who hates water, Moneo thought. Ch10 hungers for Dune. So it's the worm, not the man. Interestingly enough, Moneo makes the distinction. The fish speakers do not. They don't see a difference, is what I get from that. And it's interesting that we have a separation in his own mind of worm and man. I think we'll have the God Emperor talking about the separation of mind and body. Julian saying it's important to remember that we're entering the era where total weather and climate control across planets is now common practice. Yes, indeed. And the other thing I was about to point out here is simply this. As Julian said, Arrakis is a character in the Dune series. It's a character, the planet itself is a character. And we've gotten to know this character. And this is not the character that we know. We've been following its transformation little bit by bit, but we've jumped so far into the future now. We have great seas, rainfall. We've got an Atreides coming in here on Arrakis, soaked through, and it should be alien to us. Certainly, as readers on a first run through these books, where's our desert world gone? And it's been transformed. And we have weather control as well. I often love weather control, has always been a big part of the Judge Dredd universe, Mega City 1, and the judges use it to great effect to control the streets sometimes when they want low crime, especially at Christmas. I think it's very funny what they get up to with weather control. It's a technology that people are trying to figure out at the minute, isn't it? Certainly, I think in China, to get rain into certain places, they're firing things up into clouds and stuff, aren't they? Julian said, does Ch10 have consciousness in Leto? Is the worm purely body? I've always wondered how aware the worm is. I've been thinking about that myself as well. I've been considering the nature of Leto as always. I suppose we can run with the idea of the psychotic family novel. We still have this here. You can see Leto as the head of the family. Moneo, Siona, these are Atreides. And they don't seem like Atreides either, do they? In the sense that we know they're very, very different. But yes, the God Emperor, as much as Ch10, Ch10, we have that dualistic nature of the worms themselves and how they're worshipped by the Fremen, God and the devil in one package, plus your form of transport, as we like to point out. It's such a fundamental part of Fremen society, the worm, isn't it? Is the God Emperor schizophrenic? Is there any consciousness in the worm? Is it just pure animal taking over? Sootpot's made a very, very good point, by the way, and I don't know if we've reiterated this or pushed it across correctly, but we need to think of, first of all, if we think of the worms as and again, I don't know where to go with this yet. I'm getting my head. We've got a lot of thought processes to work through with this book, I think, and a lot of ideas to get our heads around. The worms are both plant and animal. They're a plant-animal hybrid. Once they've formed and joined together with this transformation and this symbiosis with Leto, then they're plant-animal, and we could argue human, but it's the Ixian technology that Sootpot's pointing out. Is the God Emperor a cyborg? Is there a cybernetic component to him? And I believe there is, to be honest with you, which would make it, well, I will not spoil it, but we're going to talk about certain things when we get to the end of the book. So preferably we can have each thing to its time, if you see what I mean, and place. There's a couple of things we're going to hold back till we get there. Particularly, we're going to have a chat about the Shannon myth with the all-fished and the River Shannon, the eponymous goddess of the River Shannon. Whenever we do get to the end of the book, you're just going to go, it's an inversion and of that story gender-wise. But you're going to go, oh my goodness, you know. But there's a few things we want to keep for there. But in relation to the cybernetic component, that's going to be interesting at that point as well. But yeah, it's a good point. And what is it that brings the worm out? It seems to be an emotional reaction in the conscious, if you want. How do we put it? The human part of Leto. It seems to be anger, wrath of some kind, that brings the worm. And I think what we're going to see here as we move on here, and we'll just pile on a wee second, is that there's a particularly with Moneo, has a fear of the worm. He's always looking for it, not of Leto, but of the worm. But it's the indications, I think, in Leto that he's looking for, and they often start with the conscious. If the worm part of him is unconscious, and the conscious human part of Leto, and we'll get some of the signs in this chapter, won't we? But a little difference between how Moneo looks at the god emperor and how the fish speakers look at him, I think it's quite interesting. And that the aversion to moisture is a bit of a clue, I suppose, as well. In his quarters, Moneo dried himself and changed to dry clothing before descending to the crypt. There was no point in inviting the worm's antagonism. Uninterrupted conversation with Leto was required now. Plain talk about the impending peregrination to the festival city of On. I have to get a book for you folks here. Hang on. Where would you be? What book am I looking for? White Goddess. White Goddess. Right, bear with me a wee second. Where did I put you? You're here somewhere. White Goddess. Books to there. No. Yep. There we go. Bosh. I've got some books. I'm trying to pack some stuff up without trying to pack away any books. Right, bear with me a wee second now. Tree alphabets. Oh, I can't wait to get a chance to read this book. Dying to read it. Anyway, where are we going with this? Peregrination, first of all, folks, it's an odd word, isn't it? It's from the Latin peregrinatio, which comes from peregrinor, which means to live or travel abroad. Can also mean like a sojourn, a pilgrimage, wandering or roaming about, this kind of thing. It comes from the split of the word is per, which means away, and ager, which is field or land. So in other words, it's a long dander, as we would call it here. Going for a wee dander, a long dander journey, a long meandering journey is what I've written here, often on foot, a slow journey, taking your time. There we go, the tree alphabet. On, yes, indeed, there we are. Oh, that was great. I opened it up at the exact place. I love doing that. Now, I'll just put that there and I'll read this to you here. On, by the way, we've had a wee quick natter before, but we didn't run the word. Is Arrakis. I'm not too sure how we get from Arrakis etymologically to On, but this is the festival city of Leto. Once Arrakis. Now, On is Old Irish for the ash tree. It's also a version of the Irish form of the name Owen. It's a Norse word as well, which means work, or a busy season, or harvest. But On is also the 17th letter of the Ogham alphabet, which is the ancient Irish written alphabet. Tree alphabet, of which there are many. I'll just show it to you. Here we go. Hold up. There are different ways of writing it. There we go. Can you see those? Oh, in blue on my notes there. There we go. That's the letter On. Represents the ash tree or firs. And the alphabet. Oh, I'm dying to get into this book. The White Goddess. I love Robert Graves. A great man. His Greek myths is an absolute must. And On is right here, representing the letter O. Firs. Now, bear with me a second. I haven't read this, but I keep flicking through it. Just don't have the time. Tempus Fugit, folks? Or Tempus Edax Rerum is the one I prefer. Time is the devourer of all things. Let's see. There's R for Russ. 3 alphabets. Anyway, oh goodness, there's so much in this. I'll tell you something. I'd be a hell of a lot more better informed if I had read this. I was just looking for the Ogham. Listen, Ogham. I'll just type it in for you. Wikipedia has good enough stuff on it there. There you go, Ogham, and you'll see the letter on. There's the 17th letter of the Ogham alphabet. 3 alphabets. Oh goodness, all sorts of stuff. I can't wait. I'm a big fan of the Greek myths. Graves is the man that really quite rightly pointed out that there's an awful lot of iconotropy. That's the term in the world, which is the deliberate or accidental misinterpretation of myth, which goes on an awful lot, especially in the world of psychology. Bear with me a wee second, folks. I'm just looking for, there it is. Now, so that's what a peregrination is. A nice slow wee bit of, let's go for a nice wee dander. It's a great word, isn't it? Not one you hear very often. Leaning against the wall of the descending lift, Moneo closed his eyes. Immediately, fatigue swept over him. He knew he had not slept enough in days, and there was no let-up in sight. He envied Leto's apparent freedom from the need for sleep. A few hours of semi-repose a month appeared to be sufficient for the God Emperor. So Leto doesn't sleep. And that's the bit there that kind of got me thinking of old Harry's game. As old Harry doesn't sleep either. There's a very good. The episode is actually called Sleep. Well, I think they're able to hypnotize him, and he's able to sleep for the first time, and he relives the nightmare of being having his wings cut off and kicked out of heaven. Pardon me. He doesn't have a particularly good dream, whereas Scumspawn has a great dream. But yes, indeed, something that I've just an awful lot of things that old Harry from old Harry's game, who is Satan, by the way, as a character is called Satan. They have a lot of, the God Emperor and him have a lot in common. And he can be quite petulant and childish as well. Let me just catch up with your comments quickly. Julian said, do the worms possess a form of ancestral memory through the worm-sandtrout worm cycle? Oh, goodness. Well, ultimately, their ancestry, if they did, it would ultimately end up in a lab, wouldn't it? I'm pretty certain that they're created in a lab on old Earth. Oh, no. Did I miss a comment here? Hang on, folks. Oh, I think I did. Bear with me. I'm just going to back up. Atreides, sorry, I think I did. I'll just back up, folks, here. Apologies. Atreides fortune similar to how when Alia went through emotional turmoil, her troubles with other memory and abomination increased. This time it's Leto fighting literal animal instinct. It's a good way of putting it. Carlos is saying, Julian, one would think that if the worms didn't have consciousness before Leto, they would certainly have at least a form of consciousness after. Yeah, it's symbiosis, isn't it? I don't know. And then Julian said, do the worms possess a form of ancestral memory through the worm-sandtrout worm cycle? God knows, but it would end at a certain point, wouldn't it? I think. Cynthia is saying that Carlos agreed there were to be pearls of awareness in the worms post-Leto, a curious term we'll undoubtedly discuss later in the book. That's kind of what I was referring to, Cynthia, a wee moment ago, from Sootpot's idea. And the pearl of awareness, again, how would we put it? I suppose the pearl of great prize, isn't it? This kind of thing. With Leto, we have a character that's kind of moved out of the traditional heroic cycle. He hasn't fought the monster and gained that pearl of wisdom, this kind of thing, the treasure, whatever you want to call it. Instead of, he's actually become the monster. It's interesting if we could run analogies with it. It's a bit like Bilbo Baggins merging with Smaug, or Beowulf becoming one with Grendel and his mother. It's kind of almost that kind of thing if you think about it. And Julian saying the Irish references in Dune are very subtle. I think they are, but I think they've been there for a long time. As I always said, I kind of have my own biases with Ireland and stuff like that. I tended not to, but right from the very beginning, the language of this universe is Gaelic. It says so in the book. So I don't know, as much as you think, if that's the universal language, then everyone's running around speaking Irish Gaelic, basically, aren't they? But yeah, no. I think we're seeing an increase in them as well, to be honest with you. And again, I think the Siona one, I think just because I'm guilty of it myself, actually, and then I realised, I know enough people with names like that. They're all Shans and Shannas and Shan, this kind of thing. Shannons and Shans, Shan Lloyd and so on. It's a reasonably common name here. Not that I'll say, but I've actually got a student starting with a very similar name in a week or so. Almost identical, one letter out. So yeah, and some we do have a lot of obscure our myths. We have 4 kind of major cycles of mythology, but with outside of that, then we have a wealth of absolute load of fairy tales that have emerged out of the oral tradition, many of which have kind of been, how would you put it, have been altered by, I suppose you could call it the Roman interpretation, if it's with the Catholic Church, but you couldn't call it the English interpretation, could you? But the Roman interpretation has been applied to a lot of our myths and legendary figures, reducing characters who were once giants and to little people and all of this kind of nonsense, but somehow throughout nearly 1600 years of Christianity here, it hasn't been able to wipe out our culture and our tradition. It tried to assimilate it, and in many ways it succeeded, but in many ways it failed. We've just had St. Patrick's Day here. St. Patrick's an Englishman, for example, that the Irish adore, which is not common. I think that the Irish are generally not too fond of the English. But most of the stuff that's to do with him isn't, the snakes and all of that nonsense. No snakes in Ireland, never were. A lot of that's actually, the stories there are linked to another saint, St. Colm, I think. And of course, the snakes, if we look at it, are actually worms. It's the worship of a worm god called Crom, Cromcroch, which is, in fact, me and the wife are thinking of heading up to see some, possibly up to Castle Crom again. Because the last time we were meant to go to it, that's when we found our dog Holly, and we had to cut it short. But that's around where we were. But yeah, there's stories there with Crom and St. Patrick and the worshippers of Crom that are a bit similar to who's Elijah in the Bible and the slaughtering of the worshippers of Baal, if I'm remembering correctly. Long time since I read that stuff. Let's see, rolling through. But yeah, do the worms have consciousness? Do they have memory? Do they have other memory? Do they have ancestors? Carl and Julian, probably closer to instinctual knowledge than ancestral memory. And Julian said, possibly, Carlos, I agree with you that the worm takes from Leto a form of consciousness. Leto seems to be teaching humanity a lesson in instinctuality, possibly a lesson from the worm as animal. It's interesting that we've always had that differentiation between people and animals in the Dune series, which way back I've always went, we're animal, people are animal, humans are animals, And Trudy says, I need to weave the Roman interpretation into my conversational lingo. It's a good thing. A lot of people don't know about it. It's originally the Greek interpretation of Trudy's 1405. Like most things, the Romans copied the Greeks. Then it became the Roman interpretation. And as far as I know, the last form of it is the English interpretation. Or the British interpretation, but it's really the English interpretation. And he does refer to himself as the ultimate predator. He does indeed. So, Goodness, the crack's mighty tonight, folks. On we go. Let's see. The smell of the crypt and the stopping of the lift jarred Moneo from his catnap. I like that word. He opened his eyes and looked out at the God Emperor on his cart in the center of the great chamber. Moneo composed himself and strode out for the familiar long walk into the terrible presence. That's a term. As expected, Leto appeared alert. That at least was a good sign. So I got the suggestion there that if Leto was a bit fuzzy or distracted, that might be a bad sign. In other words, that the worm may come. Leto had heard the lift approach. We get a shift of point of view here. Leto had heard the lift approaching and saw Moneo awaken. The man looked tired, and that was understandable. The peregrination to On was at hand, with all of the tiresome business of off-planet visitors, the ritual with the fish speakers, the new ambassadors, the changing of the Imperial Guard, the retirements and the appointments, and now a new Duncan Idaho ghola to fit into the smooth working of the Imperial apparatus. Moneo was occupied with mounting details, and he was beginning to show his age. We get Leto's thoughts here. Let me see, Leto thought. Moneo will be 118 years old in the week after our return from On. The man could live many times that long if he would take the spice, but he refused. Leto had no doubt of the reason. Moneo had entered that peculiar human state where he longed for death. He lingered now only to see Siona installed in the royal service, the next director of the Imperial Society of Fish Speakers. That's a title, isn't it, for a group? Moneo's 117, without melange. Part again of the God Emperor's breeding program, but no added longevity because of the drug, which is interesting. It's especially interesting if we go all the way back to Dune. I'll just point this out to you, but we can get a sense of. Oh goodness, let me see. Some characters' ages. In where are we? Appendix 4, we get birth and death dates, for example, for a bunch of them. Yeah, nobody seems to be particularly long-lived. 54 to 56. Jessica here, I think, is 102 when she passes. We get no death date for Ali in this book, oddly enough. But yeah, there's nobody that seems to be, melange in Dune doesn't seem to, I often get the sense that it conveys more that the Emperor, for example, I think, regardless of his age, he looks young. So it's maybe just more kind of, how we look rather than this kind of thing, I suppose. But we also get within Children of Dune, the idea that the Bene Gesserit can not age if they wish to. But it's an interesting age because there's no spice involved, especially when we see how Moneo, he's a wee bit tired, he's showing his age here, but we'll see him in action in the book. He's sprightly enough. And if we're being told that he could live, if we take these words literally, many times that long, then we're talking a multiplier. The suggestion is that Moneo could live to 200, 300 years old if he wanted to. Which again, I suppose I've got some questions about the breeding program in this chapter. It makes me wonder how localized it is, if you see what I mean. It's at this point, I think you generally get the sense that it's contained to Arrakis. But yeah, that's some age to live without melange. The suggestion that if you had it many, many times that, wow, that's quite impressive. But we're told that Moneo's longing for death. He lingered now only to see Siona installed in the royal service, the next director of the Imperial Society of Fish Speakers. So our character who's leading a sort of rebellion, etc., this Siona Atreides, he's out to get the God Emperor. We're going to put her in charge of the fish speakers. My Horus, as Malki used to call them. Horus, in Islam, a Huri, plural Horus or Hurrian, is from the Arabic Hawar, if I'm probably not pronouncing that, and the Arabic word Hur, which can mean companion, but actually means to have eyes with a contrast of black and white. See Wiki. If you type in Huri in Wikipedia, I'll just give you the spelling of that. You can get a lot more on that and its relationship to Islam, etc., and interpretations of it, that kind of stuff. I think, is that the right term? I'm a bit ignorant about all that kind of thing. Oh, bear with me a second. Yeah, hadith description. Yeah, I'm not. Sorry, just getting a bit confusing myself there. There's quite a bit there. What's it say? Having let's see what it says here. Hara. Classic Arabic usage. The word hur, that's the one I have, is the plural of both awar, Arabic masculine, and hwara, if I'm pronouncing that right, which is the feminine, which can be translated as having eyes with an intense contrast of white and black. The word hurai entered several European languages in the 17th and 18th centuries. It says Arthur Jeffrey and other scholars suggest an Iranian origin for the term, proposing the origins of the word to be Middle Persian, hurust, which means well grown. But you'll see a whole bunch of stuff there in relation to this topic. That's kind of, you get your 72 virgins and all of that lot. It's quite a lengthy thing, but worth checking out. And Moneo knew it was Leto's intention to breed Siona with a Duncan. It was time. Moneo stopped 2 paces from the cart and looked up at Leto. Something in his eyes reminded Leto of the look on the face of a pagan priest in the Terran times, a crafty supplication at the familiar shrine. That shrine being Leto on his cart. Pagans, I love the word pagan from the film Dragnet, are people against goodness and normalcy. If anybody's not watched Dragnet, I love it. It's one of my favorite comedies. My favorite bit is that my favorite thing in the film is that they constantly refer to the woman that's been kidnapped as the Virgin Connie Swale, and at the end of the film is that she's just Connie Swale. And you get this dun 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 moment with Dan Aykroyd. What a very funny film. Love Dragnet. Anyway, pagans, from the Latin paganus, which is a person who lives in the countryside, a country dweller. Generally, the idea is that pagans are, it's a term that's used, I suppose, post-Christianity, within the Roman Empire. It's someone who would worship either a polytheistic religion, I suppose, but I generally wouldn't have went with that. I would tend to go that it's kind of nature worship, that kind of thing. So no real gods per se, divinities of nature, if you like. But again, you've modern paganism and so on and so forth. But yes, another wee allusion to the past here. This is Moneo. Lord, you have spent many hours observing the new Duncan, Moneo said. Have the Twi'lexu tampered with his cells or psyche? He is untainted. A deep sigh shook Moneo. There was no pleasure in it. He's not a happy bunny, is he? You object to his use as stud? Leto asked. I find it peculiar to think of him as both an ancestor and the father of my descendants. So just in relation to the Duncan Idahos later, he's a stud. That's that's his use here, one of his uses anyway. Straight out of the God Emperor's mouth. So he finds it peculiar to think of an individual as his ancestor and the father of his descendants. What does that remind me on? Bear with me very quickly, folks. God, I love this. It's in All You Zombies, isn't it? Bear with me a wee second. It's a song I'm thinking on. All You Zombies is, in terms of short stories, absolute masterpiece. Love it. It goes hand in hand with by his bootstraps. What am I looking for? Bear with me a wee second. There's a song, I'm My Own Grandpa. If anybody doesn't know it, check it out. It's very funny. It's by Dwight Latham and Mo Jaff, and it's performed by Lonzo and Oscar. In 1947, it's just looking at Wikipedia here, it says it's about a man who, through an unlikely but legal combination of marriages, becomes stepfather to his own stepmother. By dropping the step modifiers, he becomes his own grandfather. Let's see, here's the origins of it. It says that in the 30s, Latham had a group, the Jesters, on network radio. Their specialties were bits of spoken humor and novelty songs. While reading a book of Mark Twain anecdotes, he once found a paragraph in which Twain proved it would be possible for a man to become his own grandfather. Very closely related, appears on page 7 of Wit and Humor of the Age, which was co-authored by Mark Twain in 1883, who's also a science fiction writer, of course. Connecticut Yankee and King Arthur's Court. In 1947, Latham and Jeff expanded the idea into a song which became a hit for Lonzo and Oscar. There's a version of it on YouTube with a little genealogical map that follows. There's a wee visualization here with 1 and 2 denoting marriages and subsequent progeny. But yeah, it's a great song, and has a mucho science fiction connections to Mark Twain, to All You Zombies, etc., etc. But it's a great song, and check it out if you want a good laugh. But yeah, just kind of reminded me of that. Here we go. Let's see. So you object to his use as a stud. I find it peculiar to think of him as both an ancestor and the father of my descendants. But he gives me access to a first-generation cross between an older human form and the current products of my breeding program. Siona is 21 generations removed from such a cross. So I've just scrolled here. Duncan is an older form of human. Leto has made the human race evolve. My question is it just on Arrakis? I failed to see the purpose. I failed to see the purpose. The Duncans are slower and less alert than anyone in your guard. We're going to find that out later. I'm not looking for good segregant offspring, Moneo. Did you think me unaware of the progression geometrics dictated by the laws which govern my breeding program? I have seen your stock book, Lord. Then you know that I keep track of the recessives and weed them out. The key genetic dominants are my concern. Okay, so time to have a look at this. First of all, we've no offense to Frank or anything as always, folks, but pardon me, we are running a critical eye over this stuff. We've had a wee chat about Frank's maths abilities before, and they're not good, especially with the use of the word equation. But we've got, I don't see how progressive geometric progression's got anything to do with this whatsoever. Geometric progression is a sequence in mathematics where once you choose a given term, how would you put it? You have a multiplier, if you like. Here, I think I wrote this down actually. Hang on, just to save me from waffling. Geometric progression is a math sequence where each term after the first is found by multiplying the previous one by a fixed number, which is called the common ratio. That's the bit I couldn't remember. CM3, it was MS3047. I don't know. That's an archaeological tablet, isn't it, or something? Sumerian I've got here. Bear with me, something I wrote down when I was doing these notes. Geometric progression. Sequence where each term after the first is found by multiplying the previous only by a fixed non-zero number called the common ratio. Terms change exponentially rather than linearly. There we go. Blah blah blah. Hang on. Now. So an example of that, for example, where are we? There's one here. A sequence 2, 6, 18, 54 is a geometric progression with a common ratio of 3. So in other words, the first number there is 2 times 3 would be 6 times the 6 by 3 you get 18. 3 18 is 54, and so on and so forth. That's geometric progression. I don't see what it would have to do. The progression geometric dictated by the laws which govern my breeding program. I think it's just I get the sense that it's a random word drop there. I feel like however, oh right, now hang on, what was I looking for here? Something I've written down. Here we go. At the bottom of this article, if anybody wants to look it up on Wikipedia, I just wrote down the tab. What's that? Tablet? Yeah, it's a tablet. Yes, indeed. I just wrote CMS 3047. A clay tablet from the early dynastic period in Mesopotamia, dated approximately 2900 to 2350 BC, identified as MS 3047, contains a geometric progression with base 3 and a multiplier of a half. It has been suggested to be Sumerian from the city of Shuruppak. It is the only known record of a geometric progression from before the time of Old Babylonian mathematics, beginning in 2000 BC. Mathematics is kind of what took me to that part of the world. Actually, over the recent years, since I finished lecturing and so on and did my PhD and I became a tutor, I've got 3 numerical systems to teach the kids here, base 2, base 10, and base 60. It's sexagesimal, which goes back, so I often bring up the old Babylonian cuneiform of those numbers and stuff like that. I even get I use 2E kind of things with a bit of blue tack to get the students to kind of make the impressions. We talk about how that system works because we still use it for time, base 60. Now, that's fascinating. Just a wee bit below it as well there, it says that books 8 and 9 of Euclid's Elements analyze geometric progressions such as the powers of 2, see the article for details, and gives several of their properties. So this is stuff that's known about in the ancient world. Always a fun place to visit. So, yeah, you see, if I was the god emperor, I'd kind of have all sorts. Yeah, it'd be a good way to go on holiday, wouldn't it? To, check it out. Check some ancient stuff out. Let me see. I'm going to catch up here, but yeah, I'm not too sure about that there. The other thing that we got from that, sorry, these are just little, before we go on with the text, is that Leto roots out recessive genes. And I've written next to that, I don't think that's a good idea. It's all about the dominance here, isn't it, is what he's saying. And we're going to get a very odd comment here. From Moneo in a wee second here. Little roots out recessive genes, not a good idea. I don't know. My genes are all recessive. Thank God. Because I know what the dominant genes look like in my family, and I'll take the recessives every time. I'm the only one with red hair, not that you can tell. But I'm your what you would expect maybe of a certain type of Irishman. I'm red-haired, blue eyes. Not what my family would almost all look like what you would call the Black Irish. So they're all short, dark-haired, dark-eyed. My father's meant to be a half Dutch. I'm supposed to be a quarter Dutch. So he was tall, very dark-haired, but he had blue eyes. Sorry, my dad wasn't tall. The only person that's kind of tall in my family was my grandmother, my maternal grandmother. Who had blue eyes, but she was also dark. So I used to get all the milkman jokes, as they used to call it there in this country, about where did this red hair come from? Because nobody in my family's got it. It's my recessive genes, possibly a wee bit of Dutch in me. As the old joke is, I'm supposed. Now I don't know if this is true or not. I don't. My grandfather knew one of my grandfathers, but the other one was supposedly killed in World War II. And the story is that he was Dutch. He was from the Netherlands, and he'd emigrated to America prior to World War II, and then World War II happened, and I think he was a GI, certain ones that were stationed here with the American Airborne and so on, you know. So whether I get my genes from him or not, I don't know, but all of my genes are recessive, and all I have to say is thank God for that. You know, I've got the height, I've got the brains, and my wife would tell you I've got the looks too. Just teasing. But yeah, he roots out recessive genes. What does that mean? Basically, we've got a God Emperor here practicing eugenics. And here's this little comment that comes from Moneo. And the mutations, Lord? There was a sly note in Moneo's voice, which caused Leto to study the man intently. We will not discuss that subject, Moneo. Okay. So at this point, I have written down what just happened here, and why not. So there's a sly note in Moneo's voice. Is he poking at something? Why will we not discuss that subject? What are the mutations? Who is mutated, and why? Well, once again, I'm a mutant. Just being to I go to the dentist every 3 months, pretty much. As I'm sure you know, a lot of you, was that whenever I started this, well, I can't remember when it was, but I had to get a lot of dental surgery because of my excessive amount of wisdom teeth. And just when I thought it was all done and I had them removed, guess what? I had horizontal teeth, wisdom teeth. So almost a circular mouth, if you like. I got another one. After getting rid of 5 of the buggers, I've got another one. And it's right through now, and it's also horizontal. So fortunately, there's not a tooth next to it. So otherwise, I'd be in agony right now. Yeah, it's going to be. It was a fun time getting out the mutant ones, if you like. They're much praised to my dentists. In fact, getting my 5th wisdom tooth out was very much like something out of an old Wild West movie, you know. Hold down, let's go, you know, one of those things. It wasn't very much a modern technology thing. It was brute force. But my wisdom tooth that came out of this side, the 5th one, was like a saw. It was like a serrated saw. It was slicing me to bits under the gum. Hateful. Baked Alaska Joe says you're talking to a Dr. Demento. Oh, hang on, did I miss something? Let me just. He does need to refer to him as the ultimate parent. That's some good healthcare there, says Baked Alaska Joe. Hurry. That's me. You're talking to Dr. Demento found here. Dr. Demento. Dr. Demento. What's that? Name rings a bell. Dr. Demento, retired American radio. What do we got? Goodbye, Dr. Demento. Barrett Eugene Hansen, also known professionally as Dr. Demento. Is that who we're talking about there? Is a retired American radio broadcaster and record collector specializing in novelty songs. All right. Comedy and unusual recordings from the dawn of phonograph to the present. Demento persona in 1970 while working at KPPC FM in Pasadena after playing Transfusion by Nervous Norvis and their DJ The Obscene. Stephen Clean remarked that Hansen had to be demented to play it. Clean and Peter Wolf then devised a mythical character named Dr. Demento that would become Hansen's persona. Weekly show. Ethnomusicology. Very good. I had a friend who did that at Queen's long time ago. Well, he did it. I can't see him in a long time. Credit with introducing generations of listeners to early and mid-20th century artists such as Harry McClintock, Spike Jones, Jimmy Durant, Benny Bell, Rusty Warren, Yogi Jorgensen, Nervous Norvis, Alan Sherman, Ray Stevens, Candy Cadito, Stan Freeberg, and Tom Nairn. He also helped bring Weird Al Yankovic to national attention. I've never heard anything. Dr. Demento radio show. I've heard the name, but I've never. Let me see. Saturday continue live broadcast TV appearances on The Gong Show, Bobby's World, Simpsons, and Barnes and Barnes. Must check it out. I don't think I would have caught it over here. It's a gas by Alfred E. Newman. Alfred E. Newman. Huh. Must check that out. Baked Alaska Joe. I think it was funny, good stuff. Julian Thompson, current generation cross is a useful term for Duncan. Gives me access to a first generation cross between an older human form and the current products of my breeding program. Shanna is 21 generations removed from such a cross. So that means that's the last time that a Duncan has been used to breed into the Atreides, I think. It's 21 generations since the Duncan's been up to stud within the Atreides, I think. I'm not sure. But yeah, I don't get what the mutation thing is about there. It seems almost like a little dig. Atreides 1405 is the good old Plimpton tablets. Ba 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 ba. Ba 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 ba. Plimpton. Babylonian clay tablets believed. Plimpton 322, Babylonian clay tablet believed to be written around 1800 BC. It contains a mathematical table written in cuneiform script. Each row of the table relates to a Pythagorean triple, that is, a triple of integers that satisfies the Pythagorean theorem: s squared plus l squared equals d squared. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. Pythagorean triplets are like 3 squared plus 3, 4, and 5, for example. Yes, indeed. Yeah, it's great stuff, isn't it? And there's a big kick. That's the thing with Pythagoras that we tend to correct a lot of students on, is that Pythagoras' theorem is not his. And even the suggestion was that he came up with the proof. No, it predates him easily over 1,000 years, doesn't it? Funny enough, my wife was just saying there, Atreides 1405. Much as we're talking about getting, we're just talking about trying to head out and in around Ireland, Northern Ireland, daybreaks and stuff. But she's just dying to go to a good museum. I was thinking, yeah, me too. You know. So they're saying Shanna's qualities are mutations, perhaps, and Moneo is worried about whether Leto will discard her. That's a good point, Cynthia. Carlos sends Cynthia a valid concern, all things considered. Yeah. What? It's the word sly there. I don't get. You know, I just don't get it. There's something that passes here that I don't think we're meant to get it. It's a little hidden thing, a little mystery. It's a very subtle thing. What just happened here? And the mutations, Lord, it's the sly note which caused Leto to study the man intently. It's like, I really want to know. And the response is, we will not discuss that subject, Moneo. Why not? What just happened is my question mark. Leto watched Moneo pull back into his cautious shell. So, as much as it's interesting, I almost get the sense that Moneo has provoked him here a little bit, and done so deliberately, and then regretted it. Pulled back into his, cautious shell. As much as I'm moving back, it's not a literal pullback, but it is a. And we get Leto's thoughts here. How extremely sensitive he is to my moods, Leto thought. I do believe he has some of my abilities there, although they operate at an unconscious level. His question suggests that he may even suspect what we have achieved in Shanna. And again, I've written which is, and the question that you're pointing out there, guy, is it mutation? Well, I know what it is. I'm sure those of us who've read the book, we know what it is. Surely that's a mutation. languages, I think maybe we're going to have another way of putting it, transformational evolution, perhaps. But yeah, I don't know. In a funny way, we're all mutants, I think, aren't we? But yeah, part of Leto's abilities here, I do believe he has some of my abilities there, although they operate at an unconscious level. His question suggests that he may even suspect what we have achieved in Siona mutation, which is So testing this, Leto said, it is clear to me that you do not understand what I hope to achieve in my breeding program. Moneo brightened. My lord knows I try to fathom the rules of it. The next little bit's a bit paradoxical, I think. Let's see. Right, rules. So it is clear to me that you do not yet understand what I hope to achieve in my breeding program. Well, how long has Moneo been with him here? For about 100 years, maybe? They haven't explained it to him clearly at this point. I don't know. My lord knows I try to fathom the rules of it. Laws tend to be temporary over the long haul, Moneo. There is no such thing as rule-governed creativity. I disagree entirely. Nonsense. I think if we take a moment to think about it, I've got two things that I'm going to hit the God Emperor with tonight. This is the first one. Rule-governed creativity. There is no such thing. That's an absolute. There ain't no such thing as a free lunch, as Heinlein would tell you, but there is such a thing as rule-governed creativity. Allow me to explain. I've got guitars here. I write songs. I write tunes. And there are rules. As much as I can explore an infinite combination of notes and stuff, how I play that machine has rules. How I get tunes out of it, there are rules. Now, outside of that, there's infinite creativity if you want, but there are parameters that I have to operate within in order to get a tune out of the damn thing. I can't play it with my mind. I've got to touch it with my fingers. I've got to have my strings on. I've got to have them tuned, or else I'll be cacophonous. There's all sorts of things. That's just playing a guitar. Rules, laws, whatever you want to call them, but a systemic way of approach. There are forms that one must adhere to in order to be creative. Now, within the concept of, within the idea of being creative within your own mind, I'd still think that it depends on how we think of these words, laws, rules, this kind of thing. But there are things that we just it's an absolute that I don't agree with, and immediately just went to playing my guitar. And anybody who plays guitar, there are things that you have to do, things that you have to learn. And I'm pretty much self-taught, so I did it the hard way. And there's plenty of things I don't know about playing the guitar. I suppose I'm always trying to learn new stuff. And sometimes I've been playing for, I don't know, since I was about 14, badly. There are things occasionally that I learn now on guitar and just go, oh God, Russell, oh no, how did you not figure that out? Oh, it's so simple, duh. I'll tell you a cracker one, really, because it's an odd one, because I don't really play with plectrums very much. But this is something that kicked into me about 5 or 6 years ago. I realized, because I don't use them very often, but I realized that I held plectrums wrong. And I always held them like this instead of like that. And when I realized this, I might have run it. My memory of time these days is getting a bit funny, but whenever it was probably about 10 years ago, actually. But whenever I realized that, I just face palm. It never occurred to me. I'd never really, on both bass and guitar, I'm a finger picker, so my hands, because I've got funny hands, they seize up when I use plectrum, so I tend not to use them very often, and that's probably why I never figured it out. But it was so bloody obvious once I realized. But yeah, there are rules, laws, if you like, to creativity. There's no such thing as rule-governed creativity. I disagree. And I thought that was a very simple version of a simple way of proving it, Right, on we go. Let's see. My Lord knows I try to fathom the rules of it. Laws tend to be temporary, fair enough, over the long haul now. There is no such thing as rule-governed creativity. But Lord, you yourself speak of laws which govern your breeding program. What have I just said to you, Moneo? Trying to find rules for creation is like trying to separate mind from body. Again, I don't agree. I'm a creative person. I'm sure quite a lot of you are out there. In terms of how I'm creative, it takes a number of forms. I do all sorts of things. I write, words, story. Well, I'm trying to write stories. I write music. I write songs. I write music without words. Write tunes. I do all sorts of things. But there are rules, and they're not like nailed to the wall or anything. But they're just, that's the way things are. Even chaos has one law, if you think about it. So I'm getting a sense of hypocrisy or even paradox here from the God Emperor. What have I just said to you, Moneo? Trying to find rules for creation is like trying to separate mind from body. But something is evolving, Lord. I know it in myself. He knows it in himself. Oh, dear Moneo, he is so close. There is something evolving. Why do you always seek after absolutely derivative translations, Moneo? I wonder what he means by this. Absolutely derivative translations. Translations which diminish, which aren't quite as good as the real thing, which derive, if you want. And again, what's he referring to here? Is it the word laws? Is it the word rules? Moneo starts with rules, Leto goes to laws, and then Moneo uses the word laws. Then we're back to the word rules, as we run through this little passage here. But something is evolving, Lord. I know there is something. Again, that word about mutation, and I think the point is what happens to the mutations. Was it Carlos and Cynthia talking about it there? Cynthia saying Shanna's qualities are mutations, perhaps, and Moneo is worried about whether Leto will discard her. So is it a kind of have we had a kind of eugenics thing here, where we have products of the God Emperor's breeding program that, like the Spartans holding up a child, if it's not no good, take it out, chuck it off a cliff, expose it, kill it. It's not fit. This kind of thing is if we get a mutation that goes in the wrong way or isn't what the God Emperor wants, let us not speak of that. Is that what he said? We will not discuss that subject, Moneo. What happens to them? And he's not interested in recessive genes or seemingly mutations that aren't agreeing with what he wants in the program. I would suggest that he kills them. And again, as Cynthia was pointing out, and Carlos said it's a valid concern, all things considered, Moneo is worried about whether Leto will discard her. And we get this that Moneo is so close, according to Leto, to figuring something out. Why doesn't he just overtly tell him? Why do you always seek after absolutely derivative translations, Moneo? Translations are funny, aren't they? I think they're quite interesting. We're just chatting today with my son about how difficult it is to translate the term the crack. What's the crack, folks? The Irish word. and it's an outrageously tricky thing to translate. It has also many, many, many meanings, and every Irish person, Northern Irish or Irish, just knows them instantly. It's what's the crack, we know what we mean. And it's an odd thing. Julian's probably experienced this from being in Belfast. I've had a relative who was beaten up in America for going into a bar and saying, "What's the crack?" And they thought he was talking about crack cocaine or something. Some things don't translate well at all. This is Moneo. I have heard you speak of. I wrote evolution ? Mutation ? At the previous bit there. Is that what he's talking about? Moneo says, I have heard you speak of a transformational evolution, Lord. That is the label on your stock book. But what of surprise? Moneo, rules change with each surprise. So maybe it's the temporary nature of rules that they evolve too. They morph, they change. But what of surprise? That the mutation, the thing that you don't look for, the thing that you don't seek, the thing that appears at random. So transformational evolution is what's in the stock book. I'd argue is that a euphemism for mutation? Who knows? I'm not sure what you think, guys. Moneo, rules change with each surprise. Lord, have you no improvement of the human stock in mind? I've put a wee question next to this. Other stock too, as a non-human. Surely we've got improvements in the human stock where we've got these super strong Amazonian type warrior women that we have in the fish speakers. But also just by Moneo's age, and that he could live a lot longer if he wanted. But it seems that there's longevity has been bred in, at the very least, into the Atreides. Lord, have you no improvement of the human stock in mind? Leto glared down at him, thinking, if I use the keyword now, will he understand? Perhaps. I am a predator, Moneo. I've written next to that, like all human beings. Your eyes are in the front of your head so you can hunt your prey. We're all predators, aren't we? Arguably, the human race is probably are the apex predators on the planet, I would think. Though not many of us go out and hunt prey for our dinner anymore, do we? I am a predator, Moneo. That's the key word there. Moneo broke off and shook his head. He knew the meaning of the word, he thought, but the word itself shocked him. Was the God Emperor joking? Predator, Lord? The predator improves the stock. How can this be, Lord? You do not hate us. I thought that was a stupid thing to say. Genuinely a stupid thing. Do foxes hate chickens? This kind of thing? No, I don't think so. I think they think they're tasty. Predator. Let's have a wee look at the word. Let's see. So I should have scribbled this one down here actually when we had him wondering about the word. Predator originates from the Latin praedator, meaning plunderer, pillager, or spoiler. Excuse me, my whistly teeth. It entered in the late 16th century, derived from predare, to rob, which itself comes from preda, meaning prey, booty, or plunder. The root preda is believed to stem from prey, hendere, meaning to seize, which is an alternative word for rape. Rape, loot, pillage, etc., all synonyms, oddly enough. Let's see what else it says here. The term is tied to the Latin root again, meaning to seize or take, which is also the root for words like prey, apprehend, and surprise. There we go. Not quite what we thought, eh, folks? Plunderer, seized as plunder. Now, loot, pillage, yeah. Something seized from, let's see, predare to predat to predator, Latin, seized as plunder to plunder into English in the late 16th century. Yeah, a plunderer. Now, prey. Let's have it. Middle English, also denoting plunder taken of war. The noun from Old French prey, from the Latin preda, which is booty. The verb from Old French prayer, based on Latin predare, seized as plunder. Of course, prey, that which is or may be seized by animals to be devoured. Person or thing given up as a victim, a living thing, usually an animal that is eaten by another living thing. And then you go, archaic, anything such as goods, etc., taken or got by violence, something taken by force from an enemy in war. Synonyms being spoil, booty, and plunder. And another archaic is the art of devouring other creatures, ravage. The victim of a disease is there as well. He became the pro. That's just the use to be. Prey of dengue is the one with there. So yeah, generally we take it as a thing that hunts and kills as a predator, and though I would argue that not all predators do that. They predate on things, but they don't necessarily have to kill them. So the predator improves the stock. Does it? You used to get some of the farmers up around the northeast coast around here, where the foxes get to their chicken coops and stuff. I remember my dad, we did a wee bit of stuff out there with the farmers, well, long time ago, because a lot of them had their guns seized at a certain time. Remember that been in the 90s. Had a bit of a habit of farmers shooting their wives up around the glens, and they basically had all of them, alcohol generally involved, taking their weapons off them for pest control. But if you got a fox getting into one of the chicken coops, it would kill all the chickens, clear off with a couple of them, but it would kill them all. That's not improving the stock, if you like, that's wiping it out. So it's, again, not always. Moneo's comment here, how can this be, Lord? You do not hate us. I thought it was a stupid comment. Immediately on top of that, the Lord Leto says, you disappoint me, Moneo. The predator does not hate its prey. There we go. Correct. Mostly, but I've also written, but not always. Predators kill, Lord. Again, not always. Leto says, I kill, but I do not hate. Prey assuages hunger. Prey is good. I've written next to that, so do veggies. Love your food. You love your food, don't you? I don't know if I had to, I don't know. I'm not quite on with what the God Emperor is saying here, or with Moneo's viewpoint of it. Moneo peered up at Leto's face in its grey cowl, and we get his thoughts here. Have I missed the approach of the worm? Moneo wondered. Uh-oh. I kill, but I do not hate. Prey assuages hunger. Prey is good. He's a killer, is our Lord Leto. And I think this conversation, again with Moneo, has he missed something here? He's a very cautious man, isn't he, around the God Emperor? Fearfully, Moneo looked for the signs. There were no tremors in the giant body, no glazing in the eyes, no twisting of the useless flippers. So we get pretty much, Moneo is an observant chap, isn't he? This is the kind of thing that would set off the God Emperor and bring forth the worm. For what do you hunger, Lord? Moneo ventured, for a humankind which can make truly long-term decisions. Do you know the key to that ability, Moneo? You have said it many times, Lord. It is the ability to change your mind. Change, yes. And do you know what I mean by long term? For you, it must be measured in millennia, Lord. Moneo, even my thousands of years are but a puny blip against infinity. But your perspective must be different from mine, Lord. In the view of infinity, any defined long term is short term. Now, that's all quite important, I think, in the overall viewpoint that Frank has within the Dune series. It's the problem of prescience, isn't it? That no matter how far you can see into the future, if you experience those moments, you could only experience a lot, your own lifetime's worth of being in the future, couldn't you? Um, Infinity is it's nothing, and that's Paul Atreides' problem, isn't it? He's lost in his future prescience, but it's all just it's almost like little Polaroids of a moment here and a moment there, isn't it? That kind of thing, snapshots. But against infinity, everything is nothing. Pretty much as close to nothing as being anything. So it sounded a very Irish thing to say there. I do apologize. Probably was. But yes, long-term decision making and the paradox of this kind of thing in the face of infinity, I think, are fundamental to everything that we do with Frank Herbert's Dune series. And we must dig out some of the quotes for you at some point on paradox and this kind of stuff. I've really been haven't got round to it with time, but really wanting to try and get some notes out of all of these audio interviews with Frank Herbert, which I've got tons of now. Very much thanks to exquisite. We've posted links to them on the channel there, folks. But your perspective must be different from mine, Lord. In the view of infinity, any defined long term is short term. So what's the key to long term thinking is the ability to change your mind. I've got news for you all. It's also the key to short term thinking as well. it's a thing you'll see probably certainly over here in the UK, is that if a politician changes their mind, it's called a U-turn. It's called backpedaling. It's attacked and attacked and attacked, generally by the opposition. It's seen as a sign of weakness and of weak thinking, which I completely disagree with. You can form an opinion on something one day, the next day new information comes in. Why wouldn't you change your mind? Why wouldn't you adjust your thinking? It's good to change your mind, to think and to adjust what you think about something. I've been reading these books for God knows how many years long, and done loads and loads of work on them. And as I've been going through them with you guys, things that we share, things that we talk about, different viewpoints that we all have, my opinions have changed greatly. And I'm happy, to change my opinions. I'm even very happy to say I'm wrong. Wow, I didn't think about that. Yeah, it's a good thing. It really is. Long-term thinking, really, I don't know, most governments, Ireland, for example, was a real mess up with the likes of Eamon de Valera running the place. And then I think, who was it? Oh, God. Was it Sean Lemass, I think, ultimately came up with these 5-year plans for Irish government, which kind of was a bit more forward thinking, and helped Ireland kind of get out of its bad state and grow into the modern country it is. But a lot of countries kind of look at 5 years, 10 years as long-term planning. We've seen the attempt, particularly with environmentalism and the ecological warnings that we were hit with in the 70s. And all of their thinking, I've got all this stuff here, and if anybody wants to check some of it out, it's in my PhD videos on the ecology section. Almost all of them are thinking 50 years ahead, and we've hit that time. We've actually went, oh my, you've got 50 years to sort your shit out, or the planet's bother. We've hit that period, and we're all going, yeah, the planet's in bother. and what can we do about it? But there you go. It's a good thing to change your mind, to consider things, and not to root your ideas in stone, if you see what I mean. Carlos was saying there's an episode of Futurama where Fry impregnated his grandmother, thereby becoming his own grandfather. Hilarious, yeah. Yeah, I love that kind of stuff. We go close time loop things and stuff. And Trinity's 1405 says Leto does love his paradox. He does indeed. As does Frank, Julian Thompson saying, "Oh yes, good crack is important to people." It is indeed. Crack's just the crack in Ireland is just what's your life like? What's the good stuff? It has so many meanings. What's happened? What have you been up to? How you doing? If something was good crack, it was a good laugh. If you see having a really good time, it can mean lots of different things. But the crack's the crack, and everybody kind of gets it, But trying to explain it, trying to define it in one word is not possible because it has so many kind of meanings, I just said Frank's ideas on infinity and paradox are very mid 20th century beat generation Zen style. Cynthia said I need to leave early. We'll listen to the rest of the session later. Thanks all. Thank you, Cynthia. All the best. Take it easy and best regards. I'm much appreciated for the email. Thank you very much. Right, where are we? So much here, isn't there? Yeah, the worm coming. He looked for the signs. There are no tremors in the giant body, no glazing of the eyes, no twisting of the useless flippers. The glazing of the eyes, my wife keeps telling me I've got nothing but bad stories. I was just about to tell you a story, or maybe I shouldn't. But I've seen somebody. I saved a guy down in Port Stewart from an English tourist from getting nearly beat to death by a soldier and a policeman's son. When I was trying to get these people away from this, the soldier wasn't there. His eyes were gone. He was not there. How I got him to stop was I'm no fighter, by the way. Use my brains. I gave him an order. I shouted at him, "Soldier, stand down!" And he came back, and he was there, and then he ran away, realizing what he'd done. But he was suffering from. I know the chap he was suffering from PTSD at the time. Not that mattered to the guy that he was trying to kill in the street. But the eyes not glazing over is like possibly, is that Leto disappearing with the worm? Oh, sorry, we jumped back a wee bit there, didn't we? Paradox. For you, it must be measured in millennia, Lord Moneo, even by thousands of years. Pardon me, even my thousands of years are but a puny blip against infinity. But your perspective must be different from mine, Lord. In the view of infinity, any defined long term is short term. Then there are no rules at all, Lord. Moneo's voice conveyed a faint hint of hysteria. What's that about? Is it just that sense that it's all just pure chaos? That would just freak him out quite badly here, that Moneo needs rules. I think it's a little hint at his character here. Leto smiled to ease the man's tensions. Perhaps one. Short-term decisions tend to fail in the long term. Tend to. I'm not too sure what to think of that statement. Short-term decisions tend not to really have much value in the long term. It depends on how we think of the long term, doesn't it? But at the same time, every decision we make carries forward with us, doesn't it? Moneo shook his head in frustration. But Lord, your perspective is time runs out for any finite observer. There are no closed systems. Oh God! Even I only stretch the finite matrix. Right. This is where we're going to stop right there. I'll read that again because it annoyed me. Time runs out for any finite observer. There are no closed systems. Even I only stretch the finite matrix. The word that I've written next to this is bollocks. Just to show you. We've had this conversation before. There we go. Bollocks. Absolute nonsense. Right, let me just bring up closed systems for you rather than just run through my old brain. But yeah, we've talked about this before, and I think this came up it's a previous Dune book, isn't it? I'm pretty sure, and we hit this quite hard at the time. Of course, there are closed systems. I could design a closed. I'm a systems person. One of my other hats is I have a master's in computing and information systems. So I know all about systems. Not that I've designed a couple of them, right? But let's have a wee look. Closed system you'll find on Wikipedia. No problem. Is a natural physical system that does not allow transfer of matter in or out of the system, although the transfer of energy is allowed in the context of certain fields, such as physics, chemistry, and engineering. So, for anybody who wants to take a wee look, type in closed systems on Wiki and you'll get a little run through. Classical mechanics, thermodynamics, quantum physics, etc., chemistry, and engineering. But for example, in thermodynamics, a closed system can exchange energy as heat or work, but not matter with its surroundings. An isolated system cannot exchange any heat, work, or matter with the surroundings, while an open system can exchange energy and matter. This scheme of definition of terms is not uniformly used, though it's convenient for some purposes. In particular, some writers use closed system where isolated system is used here. So how do we look nosy at that? But it's absolutely possible to create a closed system. An engineering context is known as a bound system, defined in which every input is known, every resultant is known, or can be known within a specific time. And you can take it a little bit even further than that, if you like. When you start thinking about the universe and stuff like that. But there absolutely are closed systems. And this is a fault of the author here. How do I put this? Which creates a flaw in the character. If your character is a god, it's a bit like the man who would be king, this kind of thing. My favorite version of that's the Ace Trucking Co. one. I think I might have that somewhere. I must have a nosy. I've got all the 2080s now, haven't I? Yeah, if you act like divinity, if you're pretend that you're omnipotent, omniscient, all these kind of things, cutting yourself shaving's not good, but talking nonsense, demonstrating that you don't know things is not really the act of a divine being, is it? So time runs out for any finite observer. Fair enough. There are no closed systems. Absolute nonsense. And that's an absolute statement, by the way. Even I only stretch the finite matrix. I was kind of thinking about Frank's use of language here sometimes. I'm wondering, is this the kind of thing that, because I analyze his language quite a lot, I have a lot of problems with Frank's use of syntax. But I actually think a lot of it's deliberate and sometimes. What was I thinking on there? Oh goodness, I've lost my train of thought there. I shouldn't have jumped into the syntax thing. His language. Oh yeah, I remember now. Some of this stuff here stinks of how would I put it? What's this? General semantics. Which I think is a load of hooey sometimes, pretty much. But it's the use of language, and it's sometimes when we get technical language from Frank that's his downfall. Most of the time he gets it right, I think. But we've noticed particularly problems with his knowledge of mathematics. I said, having read that book recently, I've skimmed it. I haven't read it thoroughly, but I've been looking at sections of it and just Without Me You're Nothing, the book, or the kind of how to work a personal computer from the late 70s, early 80s. I kind of enjoyed it. It kind of took me back to thinking about BASIC and stuff like that. But I got a real sense that Frank didn't write a lot of that book. He's the ghost. Well, his name's on it. He's not but the Max Barnard, I think, most of the technical stuff in Frank's writing, and it tends to kind of head towards science fiction stuff there, or to say it's not the thing, the root of science fiction, if you like. But that's just, for me, it's a statement by the God Emperor that destroys his knowledge, as far as I'm concerned. And as far as I am concerned, we have to take it as an error by the author and shouldn't try to apply it too much to the God Emperor. Even though he is a fallible, he's not a god, is he? Technically. That would be proof to me that he isn't. Right there. Yeah. So it's an interesting thing. And I think the other thing I was thinking was that I'm pretty sure Frank's talked about this before. I remember going off on this topic before to you guys, writing it in something. Pretty sure it's probably Children or Dune Messiah. I can't remember. I'll have to have a wee nosy. I'll do a search for next time, see if I can find it. But we've had this rant before. So apologies. I'm going to suspend my disbelief, as I tend to do with these things, and not let it spoil. It's a little thing, it's a minor detail, but it certainly speaks of the non-divinity, if you like, of the God Emperor of Dune. He's just made a bad. I added up. It's a bad mistake, I don't know. I think it's Frank's mistake that bleeds into the character, if you see what I mean, and it shouldn't be there. But it's not true at all. Moneo jerked his attention from Leto's face and peered into the distances of the mausoleum corridors. And we get his thoughts here. I will be here someday. The golden path may continue, but I will end. That was not important, of course. Only the golden path, which he could sense in unbroken continuity, only that mattered. He returned his attention to Leto, but not to the all blue eyes. Was there truly a predator lurking in that gross body? You do not understand the function of a predator, Leto said. The words shocked Moneo because they smacked of mind reading. He lifted his gaze to Leto's eyes. We got something with that, something very similar with that before, didn't we? And I think it was the Emperor, Ch10 IV, wondering about telepathy and mind reading. That's what this reminded me of. And he's what, is he reading my mind? He lifted his gaze to Leto's eyes. This is Leto, intellectually that even I will suffer a kind of death someday, Leto said, but you do not believe it. How can I believe what I will never see? Well, that's an interesting statement. People believe in all sorts of things that they don't see, but I think that this is proof of Moneo's worship, if you like, of Leto and his divinity, that I don't think Moneo can see it. Moneo had never felt more lonely and fearful. What was the God Emperor doing? Let me get his thoughts here. I came down here to discuss the problems of the peregrination and to find out about his intentions towards Siona. Does he toy with me? Let us talk about Siona, Leto said. Mind reading again. I suppose the question is, does he read his mind, or is it simply he's that astute that he can read the body language, the minutiae, all of this? That's not really, the skills that Leto would have. So mind reading again. Here's Moneo. When will you test her, Lord? The question had been waiting in the front of his awareness all this time, but now that he had spoken it, Moneo feared it. Fear again. I like highlighting fear anytime I see it in the book with red. There we go. Soon. Forgive me, Lord, but surely you know how much I fear for the well-being of my own child. Others have survived the test, Moneo. You did. Moneo gulped, remembering how he had been sensitized to the golden path. My mother prepared me. Siona has no mother. Now, at this point, just as I'm reading the book, I can't again, I piled through God Emperor June really quickly. Now it's time to hit it in detail. I can't remember, or I'm not sure what's happened to Moneo's mother, but we're moving one chapter ahead. So I've written down Moneo's mother dead. Sorry, Shanna's mother dead? Question mark. Clone. What? Why has she no mother? What happened there? So it's something we'll have to keep an eye out for. She has the fish speakers. She has you. Accidents happen, Lord. Tears sprang into Moneo's eyes. That's really interesting. If we think about the Fremen and the Atreides and giving water to the dead and all of this kind of stuff, wasting moisture, that's fine here, isn't it? It's a weepy Moneo. Leto looked away from him, thinking, he is torn by his loyalty to me and his love of Shanna. How poignant it is, this concern for an offspring. Can he not see that all of mankind is my only child? That's a paradoxical statement, isn't it, right there? And I've also written here, I have to write this in, I've written it in red actually, the Abraham problem. Just to explain, I suppose that I'm very much reading the Hyperion Cantos. It's a big part of this where a father takes, there's a character called Saul Weintraub who's taking his daughter Rachel to the time tombs. He's one of the 7 pilgrims to the Shrike, and the child is aging backwards because she used to be an archaeologist at one of the time tombs where the Shrike appears. And so at the point where I'm at in the book, he's got 4 days until the child winks out of existence, if you like. So Saul Weintraub in Hyperion Cantos is taking his child to sacrifice her to the Shrike in the hope that it will save her. And I suppose it's just the big moral discussion of it and how Saul, who's a Jewish character, looks at his problem and compares it to the sacrifice of or the attempted sacrifice of Isaac by Abraham, and the morality of it. And Moneo's in a similar situation here. It's a test. He's going to have to present his only child here. Shanna is going to be put to the test by his God. It's a thing that obviously tears at him. He's crying here. Tears sprang into Moneo's eyes. We don't see many characters in the Dune series openly weeping because they're sad, because they're worried, because they're fearful. Especially with all the things of the Fremen and so on, the wasting of moisture. It's a very interesting change here we see in a particular character. In this particular character, and it's starting to make Moneo very interesting. But can he not see that all of mankind is my only child? That's a paradoxical statement, isn't it? It's it's an oxymoronic. I love the word oxymoron. Oxymorons are great. And it also reminds me of the comment that Paul Atreides makes to the Reverend Mother Gaius Hel Mohiam all the way back at the very beginning of Dune. You take a lot upon yourselves, don't you? It's a bit possessive of Leto II, considering everyone is his child. So I'll just read that again. Leto looked away from him, thinking, he is torn by his loyalty to me and his love of Shanna. How poignant it is, this concern for an offspring. Can he not see that all of mankind is my only child? And if he can't see it, why doesn't he just tell him? Returning his attention to Moneo, Leto said, you are right to observe that accidents happen even in my universe. Does this teach you anything? Lord, just this once, couldn't you? Moneo, Surely you do not ask me to delegate authority to a weak administrator. Ouch. Moneo was looking for a bit of nepotism here. Just this once, couldn't you make an exception? And surely he must know. I don't. We get the sense of a bit of the survival of the fittest within the Dune series. This kind of thing. These survival tests. And it's the fact that it's not the fact that Shanna might not pass the test. Moneo's probably got a fair idea of what it is. Pardon me. But accidents happen. Shit happens. Murphy's Law. If anything can go wrong, it will. This kind of thing. It's you can prepare for something. Test yourself, run problems, get ready for something. All of this. And then something will just, some random thing can just make everything go, a file, just make everything go tits up, as they say. I'm a firm believer in Murphy's Law. What's the other one? Sod's Law as well. But Murphy's Law is if anything can go wrong, it will. Yeah. Expect the unexpected, all of this kind of stuff. But yeah, shit happens is another way of phrasing it. Pardon me. Sure, you do not ask me to delegate authority to a weak administrator. And I kind of went, oh, it's a bit of a burden, isn't it? I kind of got the sense that it's almost the implication that everyone who's not Moneo is a weaker administrator. It's a kind of almost a backhanded compliment, but it causes Moneo to back up a bit here. Moneo recoiled one step. No, Lord, of course not. Then trust Shanna's strength. Moneo squared his shoulders. I will do what I must. Shanna must be awakened to her duties as an Atreides. Yes, of course, Lord. Is that not our commitment, Moneo? I do not deny it, Lord. When will you introduce her to the new Duncan? The test comes first. Moneo looked down at the cold floor of the crypt. He stares at the floor so often, Leto thought. What can he possibly see there? Is it the millennial tracks of my cart? No. It is into the depths that he peers, into the realms of treasure and mystery which he expects to enter soon. I've written, what does that mean? Dreams or death? I think it's death, isn't it? The realms of treasure and mystery. I'm not too sure. We sort of got the sense that Moneo does have a bit of a death wish. Once more, Moneo lifted his gaze to Leto's face. I hope she will like the Duncan's company, Lord. Be assured of it. The Twi'leks have brought him to me in the undistorted image. That is reassuring, Lord. So unchanged, etc. Just going to back up a wee bit. Shanna must be awakened to her duties as an Atreides. I think it's almost kind of like get the sense that at this point it might be an awakening, a bit like how we awaken a Kwisatz Haderach. Some crisis point that creates a moment of forced evolution, if you like. Be assured, I hope she will like the Duncan's company. Be assured of it, that Twi'leks have brought him to me in the undistorted image. That is reassuring, Lord. Unaltered, unchanged. No doubt you have noted his genotype is remarkably attractive to females. That has been my observation, Lord. There's something about those gently observant eyes, those strong features, and that black goat hair which positively melts the female psyche. As you say, Lord. You know he's with the fish speakers right now. I was informed, Lord. Of course Moneo was informed. Sorry, I missed a bit there. Leto smiled. Of course Moneo was informed. They will bring him to me soon for his first view of the God Emperor. Talking about himself in the third person there. I have inspected the viewing room personally, Lord. Everything is in readiness. Sometimes I think you wish to weaken me, Moneo. Leave some of these details for me. Wish to weaken me. It's an interesting thing. Moneo tried to conceal a constriction of fear. He bowed and backed away. Yes, Lord, but there are some things which I must do. Bit of a backbone there, I think. Turning, he hurried away. It was not until he was ascending in the lift that Moneo realized he had left without being dismissed. His thoughts here. He must know how tired I am. He will forgive. And that's knowledge that he will forgive, and he must know I'm tired. Yes, he does. He can read his mind. It's a very interesting little chapter there. Just very quickly, the word we had the genotype there. Genotype is the complete set of genetic material of any given organism. Love looking stuff up like this. Term coined by Danish botanist Wilhelm Johansen in 1903. He's the guy that also gave us the terms gene and phenotype, if anyone wants to look him up. Danish botanist and geneticist Wilhelm Johansen. His dates are the 3rd of February 1857 to the 11th of November 1927. Just for a wee bit of info. There's loads of stuff to look up in this book. That get me interested anyway. Well, there we go, folks. That's the end of another chapter. I'll quickly have a wee look at your comments there just to see. No, we've kind of caught up on all everything Cynthia's saying. Farewell. So that's the end of another chapter, and I found it a really interesting one. I've almost got more questions than we have answers, I think. But that wasn't actually a particularly long chapter, but it took us a wee while to get through. Probably because of the crack, I would say, which has been mighty today. There we go. So we're just hitting 12:30, folks. Goodness, I've been up since 8 this morning. I'm getting up ridiculously early these days. I've been suppressing a yawn for the last half hour. So if anybody's got any wee questions or comments, fire away. Our next chapter is going to be on 9 pages, a little bit longer, and I think it's a very interesting one. We're going to get a sort of state of the a kind of state of the universe, if you like, from the Bene Gesserit's point of view, a review of all the players and actors within this time frame, and it'll be a good thing because it's going to update us a bit, I suppose, and give us a different perspective on things. Where are we? This assessment of the state of the empire in the year 3508. Of the reign of the Lord Leto, taken from the Welbeck abridgment. The original is in the Chapter House archives of the Bene Gesserit order. The comparison reveals that the deletions do not subtract from the essential accuracy of the account. So again, a little bit of another stylistic change within the book, that we get this report. I think that's going to be really interesting because, as I said, there's some things I'm kind of curious about. How far does the God Emperor's breeding program extend? Is it localized to Arrakis? What's going on with the rest of the universe? Is everybody as long lived without melange as Moneo? You know, it's an interesting little chapter that we got ahead of us, but I thought that one there was fascinating. I said, sorry, folks, just some wee things that I find interesting at the start there. I've managed to matter about 20 minutes, but I really do hope that the body that they found in the Maastricht Church is D'Artagnan. I think that'll be fascinating. I'm kind of curious because I do holiday over there, so I might get to go see it. But there we go. Well, listen up, folks. 12:30, we've been at it for a while. Another chapter done on our 6-year journey through Frank Herbert's Dune series. So for those of you who are still around, I will say thank you very much for joining me as always. Yeah, it's been a great night. I've really enjoyed it. I mean, not coughing as much. It really, not smoking helps quite a bit, doesn't it? I think that's great. So yeah, I'll leave it there. I'll say good night. Thank you very much to all of you. Again, just a wee note to Chaya, thinking of you and your family. I hope all is well. And as for all the rest of you, look after yourselves, take care, and be safe in these crazy times. And we'll see you next week at the usual time, Thursday, 10 o'clock GMT, with our next exciting chapter of God Emperor of Dune. In the meantime, remember, no matter where you go, there you are. Be excellent to one another. All the best, folks. Good night.